What is up, down, and sideways, you absolutely gorgeous individuals? It's another Rep of League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you to do a little. Listen, MSI is kind of a mini Worlds, right? Especially as it has expanded. So it feels only natural to do a mini top 20 player rankings. We're shrinking it to 10. The top 10 players at MSI. And despite there only being 2 LCK teams at the event, one of them at the play-in stage, there's a lot of LCK representation on this top 10, shockingly.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone's going to truly be too surprised about something like that, but I think the players, where they are, things like that, are absolutely worth a little bit of a discussion. And yes, maybe without the full-on Worlds type of effect and a full top 20 type of list, you would have it fleshed out with a couple of other players, maybe some other teams in here. A different story when you're looking at this MSI one and we have as dominant as squads as we do have heading towards this event.
But despite all that, the first fella on this list is not from the LCK, and we're looking at what has mostly been Gigabin on the top side. Yes, he's had some failed Scion flashes trying to juke where there was a ward in the bush, but he's also had some Scion triple kills, solo kills. We've seen him, the kill participation numbers and damage numbers are a bit skewed because this man likes to play off on his own, and he is also, in this version of Bin, not afraid to play tanks.
Yes, and we have seen, obviously, a fluctuation in his performance, his lethality within that position so far throughout the split. But at the end of the day, throughout all of it, he still has been quite a lethal player, someone that has been able to make out advantages, someone that is able to make a difference when the game starts to get later and later. He is a factor, and Bin is someone that you still got to be prepared for. And as you laid out, he's been playing a lot more tanks so far throughout this time, still finding an angle to be a kill threat even on those tanks a lot of times. That's just what Bin can bring to the table.
And one of the premier, if not the premier, Cassante player in the LPL, which, as we know, you can't be a professional top laner if you can't play Cassante at a high level, and Bin has pretty close to mastered a lot of the mechanics on that champion. So shout out to him for, again, used to shy away. I'm not playing Scion. I don't want to play Cassante, but not only is he playing them, but he has been thriving on them throughout this, entire split too, and really even further, all of 2026. You can probably highlight him at that level. But after him, we very much so get into some of these LCK guys, and this is low for a list like this to be talking about Keria, who already we know is kind of in the conversation for GOAT when it comes to supports, but we absolutely saw him and the T1 bot lane level up throughout the road to MSI, those couple of series, and even the last couple of series to close out the regular season.
It really is one of these dangerous territories, throwing a guy like Keria here this early in a list like this, because he's certainly someone that his performance at the event could make this look very bad, because he absolutely has the capability of being a top 3 player at the event, if not the top player at the event. That's the capability that he has here. But that also is more so a statement on just some of the earlier ups and downs I think that you had, or maybe lack of real oomph and punch from that bottom lane of T1, and Keria takes his share of that there. But as you laid out, yes, also the progress that was made for this bottom lane, and specifically Keria and those performances through that road to MSI part of the LCK scheduling. Keria was a major factor for T1, so I see that still continuing to MSI. So I'm cautious about this one, where I think that, yes, obviously there are lots of guys that I still want to talk about and throw in and recognize their accomplishments and power heading towards this event. But man, am I scared throwing a guy like Keria here at this point in the list.
He's already on that, return to form trajectory that we mentioned, but this is a guy who could be peak slumping and at an international event could completely turn it around and, be the MVP of the entire event. He's one of very few guys in the world that you can feel not confident, but wouldn't be surprised if that ends up being the case. And one of of the reasons he's a little bit lower is the top support in the LCK right now. Mr. Delight has had himself quite a showing over the last couple of weeks, and in that head-to-head, Delight was one of the main X factors in Hanwha's win against T1.
It was a major thorn in the side of T1 throughout that series, and it is one of these ones where you got, again, as painful and cautious as you could be to throw Keria into that position, you have to respect what Delight and Hanwha Life were able to throw out throughout this split, and especially that level up against T1 in specific. That's the one for me that throws it over the top, and where it felt like, kind of playing like rock, paper, scissors against somebody, but they're reading your mind every step, every little way. They have the right sign to throw down. Just felt like that was the canceling out effect for Keria throughout that series. Every single time that he thought he could make a play, make an angle for the squad, Delight one-ups you with what he was able to put out for Hanwha Life.
And I think that was never more evident than the Blitzcrank into the Thresh deciding game where, Delight just took his time going lane to lane to lane and landing hooks to get them ahead, waiting over the Baron Pit to yank them in. He was pretty much controlling that entire game for Hanwha Life and completely starving out T1. And, this is a guy that I think has been at times in the conversation pushing Keria as kind of that elite support within the LCK, and we're seeing him at pretty much peak form right now.
Is it one of the, most ego type of matchups for support to have the Thresh and the Blitzcrank, the battle of the hook champions, and basically, especially being on that Blitzcrank side of that matchup and saying, I don't need all the extra stuff that you're bringing to the table as a champion, as a support, as a teammate, as Thresh. I'm just here for the hooks, and I'm going to hit them, and I'm going to make them work for my squad. And yes, Delight certainly styled on that pick.
I think it is one of the bigger ego ones because you have two champions that there's so much pressure on a single ability, right? If you're not landing Qs on either of these champions, well, your pick is, I'm not going to say useless, but a whole lot less impactful. And yeah, Delight definitely got the better of that. And first jungler on this list to chat about is kind of the objective. King had his way against Canyon in that head-to-head, and the last year, and even at times in 2026, remains the most consistent member of T1. That is Oner in the jungle.
There's an early spoiler for you. There's only one other jungler that would ever deserve
10 players
to be
short
on
list,
this, on this list ahead of him in this situation, and that's just simply because of how fantastic that they've been. Nothing against what Oner has been able to do and produce for T1 throughout this second split in the LCK. He has continued to be one of the more consistent members of T1, which is a strange sentence to be talking about given some of the early years of him on this lineup, but very much so has become that guy that you can rely upon, and especially as that series gets later, find one of these decisive picks, right? Be on a champion that is going to make that engine work throughout that series, throughout a composition in these drafts that T1's been able to play. I think that I really like some of that added share of being one of the main focal points of the composition that he has been able to put through for this team this year. I think that Oner is in arguably his best form heading towards this event, and is going to be someone that is, again, continuing to look to prove the doubters, prove the haters wrong. The guys, the LCK committee, whatever, Keria, Kespa Cup, whoever's deciding the team that is going to represent them at the Nations event, I think he's absolutely going to be proving them wrong.
Yeah, and still absolutely has some of that psychotic gameplay. You saw the 12 solo kills is 5 more, nearly twice as many as the next highest jungler in the LCK through rounds 1 and 2. So he's often finding himself in these absolute brawls, whether it's against a jungler or cleaning up kills in a lot of these lanes.
Yeah, and I think when you're talking about what you can expect him to bring to the table, he's going to want something that is going to get in your face, be aggressive, and be someone that is going to be a factor. I think you're looking at, of course, the Xin Zhao that he's been playing throughout this split. You can even go to something that, again, we didn't see as often, But most recently, that time we did see it was very impactful. The Nefiri, another one of those champions that wants to be right in there. And I think, again, Oner is at the top of his game, and having him at that point heading towards this MSI is only a good thing for T1.
Sticking with that T1 red theme. I know they're just a play-in team, so maybe we're a little too high on them, but it is the Penta Prince himself who absolutely leveled up in a huge way in the road to MSI. We're talking about Keria playing a lot better, but Peyz was absolutely deadly. Even held his own in that Hanwha Life series, but really outclassed Ruler in that final series against Gen G. We know he's already got 2 pentakills in this split, and the craziest thing, all the accolades, MSI, LCK, individual awards, Peyz is still only 20 years old, Mark. 20!
That's not possible. I cannot believe that with the amount of time that it feels like we've been talking about him, not only as a professional player, but as a professional player that is playing at an exceptional level and contributing on some of the biggest teams in the world. Pretty crazy to say that he's only at that type of age, but man, he is stepping into this event in great form, and way he has been producing for the T1 bottom lane in the last little bit for them, and really has been impressive. And I think the only thing you could say about him is for T1 to be here, to even get and accomplish achieving getting this ticket to MSI and being, as you've mentioned, a play-in team at that point. You don't get this done without Peyz. And I'll say that as well in saying that, the quality of ADC and performance and damage and responsibility and positioning that he had throughout the entirety of that road to MSI portion for T1, the only guy that is capable of really producing that to me in the LCK are guys like a Gumayushi, like a Ruler in that situation. And if that's the bar and you're able to meet it and clear it as Peyz, you are a special player. And I think that is absolutely something that should be recognized amongst, the high pressure that it was joining this T1 roster. And yes, as easy as it might seem to be to join such talented players and such a well-run organization and everything else, Peyz has been able to step in and almost not miss a beat with this group, and has been able to step up to that exceptional level that is being one of the elite tier teams in the LCK.
Especially when you're the only roster change. All of a sudden, it's all the pressure on. We won Worlds last year. If anything goes wrong, it's Peyz's fault. He's the only change. It's Peyz's fault. So yeah, they're unrealistic and unfair levels of pressure are thrown on him. But right now, absolutely delivering. And he is neck and neck with that guy you just mentioned, his replacement, or the man he replaced in Gumayushi, who somehow learned how to play Ziggs now that he's on Hanwha Life, which is, that's something different entirely, but it's just amazing to see him find his footing, and amazing to see, I'm not going to call him a supportive player now on Hanwha Life, but there's a lot of gold to go around on this HLE team, and he hasn't been nearly the featured guy like he was at times on T1.
Yeah, he's become a little bit more of that weak side king, a little bit in the bottom lane here for Hanwha Life, able to find the damage. He's that guy, he's that friend that you don't know is always able to go, don't worry, I got your drink covered. Lunch is on me today. How are you able to get by on this? I got you covered. That's Gumayushi. He's got you covered. It doesn't matter what type of, you think you've taken everything. He's still there and finds a way to be that decisive member for this Hanwha Life team. And especially heading into this year, right, moving away from T1 and the pressure that would be there on a decision like this, and betting on yourself joining this squad like Hanwha Life and being that thing that throws them to that next tier, brings them up from just being great to being that excellent level in the LCK. Guma has been able to do that. And as you said, I think he's shed a little bit of the T1 Ziggs curse along the way, which has been a nice addition to the roster for him. But I think when you do talk about him and his contribution, you do need to mention, as you said, when you look at the resources around Hanwha Life, he ain't getting the lion's share of them a lot of the time, but that doesn't mean that you can forget about him, that he ain't going to be one of these factors that is going to be a deciding member within these later team fights, because that execution and raw skill is still there and on point for your boy Gumayushi.
And one of the guys taking some of those resources is a guy not sharing the side lane CS, and that is the God of Thunder himself, the other former T1 member, Zeus. And listen, he doesn't have a lion's share of the gold either, because there's just so many amazing players on this HLE roster for this gold to go, and obviously some of that is being on, he's played his fair share of the Scions and the Casantes and this split, but really there's also been a lot of side lane. I mean, we've seen this guy play Gwen, Ken, and Annie, these kind of one-offs. Tristana, we know these Vayne AD carries, and I'm quite certain there'll be some crazy picks out of coming him at this MSI.
One of the most skilled players in the world. Zeus steps into this list, and he is going to be a menace at this year's MSI. That's my real prediction here, looking at this list. I think this is the one. Keria was the scarier one because, again, you're at 9, and that's such a climb. Zeus is the one where I'm still scared this high up into the list that we haven't thrown him high enough with what results he will put out at this MSI. I think this is certainly one of those ones where he is poised to make a big impression on everybody once again on the world stage. And I think when you look at his role on Hanwha Life, as you mentioned, yes, another guy who's maybe taken a little bit more than Gumayushi is, but still not the lion's share all the time, or the share that you would expect for the performances that you have been able to get from him for Hanwha Life so far is the key thing for me. And as you mentioned, those tanks up there in the top side, and I think he's gotten a little bit more reliable, more consistent on for a squad like Hanwha Life, but it still is, to me, the other type of champions that he can play, right? The ADCs, the more carry-orientated damage threat options within that top side. That's when he really is that monster that there is no true equal to me in the League of Legends community when he is able to excel and operate on champions like that. That type of threat, that type of power in his hands, that's something that only the best of the best and most prepared teams are able to take down.
And you might be forgiven if you haven't paid attention to a lot of the Hanwha Life games this year. If you see, wait a sec, Zeka is higher on here than a guy like Zeus, a guy like Gumayushi, but then I would kindly invite you to go watch some of the VODs from Zeka, because this is legit DRX 2022 run type of form that he has been in for the entire second half and almost the entire split of whatever, rounds 1 to 2. This guy has been bodying pretty much everybody not named Chovy in the LCK.
This is stepping into our, our global power rankings club bar scene, whatever, VIP section, and heading up to the bartender. And he's mixing you a crazy drink, right? You got all these elements, sweet, sour, savory, cold, all these stuff. It's all mixed in there, right? Zeka is the bartender's spoon. He is there. He is dipped into that drink. He's got everything. He got all those elements, and they're all key things that you might say is the thing that makes the drink. But you got to have it mixed properly, and you got to have it just twisted with that spoon, stir it up. That is Zeka for Hanwha Life throughout this split. That was the key thing that he was. Yes, you might have these fantastic ingredients, these wonderful drinks with excellent aspects coming through, but it doesn't mean anything if you can't get it all working together and stirring it nicely. That was Zeka's job in the mid lane, and he was the driving force that made Hanwha Life the team in the LCK this split.
Yeah, and obviously, the typical pocket picks of the Yone have been absolutely disgusting, must banned or taken away from him, but even all the meta stuff he's looked so comfortable on, even when he's kind of making a misplay and dying level 1 against Faker, not only does he bounce back, he bounces back to completely smurf on the rest of the series. And in the high stakes matches, I can't wait to see him again on the international stage, and can't wait to see him paired with what has been the two-headed beast of this HLE roster, and that is Kanavi coming in the number 2 spot. Just look at all those stats he's number 1 at within the LCK, and you can throw in Smite, Objective Control. This guy has been an absolute terror in the early game on the Rift.
This is what everybody was worried about. all those years that he was doing this in the LPL, this is exactly what everyone thought would be possible within the LCK and what he could do here. Now, it was a little bit of some time, right? Adjustment period for a squad like Hanwha Life. And that is more so, I think, about what was the previous version of Hanwha Life and how they operated and what things went on behind the scenes within a game to get across the finish line to where they are now with Kanavi and his skill set that is brought to this team and how to properly utilize it and take it to that next level. Well, we certainly saw that in Split 2, taken to the extremes in the LCK, where he is able to put out a split like this. And as you said, the numbers are all there for him. But just like Zeka, watch the tape. If Zeka's the thing that is stirring that drink, Kanavi is the perfectly placed coaster. He is right there for your beverage and absolutely keeps it in that perfect, pristine condition. And he is moving you through the stages of the game and elevating you to different type of levels. Kanavi is at the peak form that we have seen from him in his career, matching some of the top, most lethal moments that we have seen from him in the LPL, and doing it now for the Hanwha Life squad.
That's a lot of Hanwha Life guys in a row highlighting this list, but they are not. They're all gone. That's all 5 of them, which means the top dog on the list, despite all the LCK representation, you have to put the golden left hand, because BLG are not even at this event. If you remove Knight from the roster, if you remove an HLE guy here or there, they're probably still a top 2 team in the LCK, but Knight is pretty much everything for BLG. Across 22 games, he had an 8.4 KDA mark. That is disgusting in playoffs.
Now, I'm going to say, biasly, I'm going to jokingly throw out here, my number 1 would be Game 5 Faker. I'll throw that. Any Game 5, whatever, the pressure is on, I'll throw Faker at the top of that list type of thing situation.
Sure,
Give him a little bit. Make sure he gets a little asterisk honorable mention in this regard. But yes, when we're being serious about it right now and looking at the power of these players, there is nobody like Knight for the LPL and how he has been able to lead this BLG team through the good, through the bad, throughout this split. There has been maybe sporadic moments of bad throughout this split. Let's put that for BLG, because it certainly hasn't been a complete smooth sailing job for them to get to this position. But being in this position, they would be not with a guy like Knight doing the role that he has had for them this split. He has been the unquestioned MVP of this squad and in the LPL, and has, again, for a guy that you have heard for many years talked about at this type of level, he's elevated his game to another tier so far. This split is the power that he has been and the responsibility that he has taken for this BLG team as its true icon and leader.
This guy is getting double-digit kills and like 80 CS leads on Annie. On Annie. Everybody else in the world, except for Chovy, I'll keep him in that category as well, they're like 2 levels behind. The Annie just becomes a stun bot, but this guy's dominating lane and like 3-tapping guys on Annie.
Yeah, and this is a situation where, again, we're talking about a BLG where you've got Bin at number 10, right? Which is, again, not a bad place to be. That's it's very skilled, wonderful player. That's not exactly the Bin that we have seen necessarily in the past to some of the heights for it. Viper in the bottom lane, not getting the same Viper that we got in the LCK. Injury situation. Want to make sure that is noted for your boy Viper and where we have been more so on the upward swing as recently as things for him as well. But very much so has been that it has to have been Knight to get you to this point. And he has been that superstar for this squad. And I can't wait to see him at this MSI and hopefully see him show out.
We'll see how this list potentially changes as the tournament goes on. But yeah, for now, even if Chovy was at the event, you'd still be having Knight in that top spot. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you. Absolute stunners. Thanks so much for the support as always. You know we'll catch you on that flippity flip.